I always felt like something was off in our relationship, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My ex-girlfriend and I had been together for a couple of years. And though things had seemed good for the most part, there were little signs that started to add up. She'd gotten distant, a little too protective of her phone, and had begun mentioning this friend of hers more and more frequently. In passing, never anything specific, just enough to make me wonder. I wasn't the jealous type, or at least I tried not to be. But when someone's behavior shifts, it's hard to ignore. One night, while she was asleep, I gave in to that gnawing feeling in my gut. I went through her phone. Something I never thought I'd do in any relationship. It felt like a violation of trust, even though I was starting to suspect she'd already broken that trust herself. What I found weren't outright confessions, but sketchy, coded conversations with this friend. They were talking about meeting up, something she'd never mentioned to me, and their messages had a weird, flirty undertone that made my stomach twist. It wasn't overt, but there was enough there to make me feel like I was right to be suspicious. But I knew how it would go if I confronted her directly. She'd lie, bury things deeper, and make me feel like I was crazy. She was good at that, turning things around, making me second-guess myself. I didn't want to give her that chance. So, I came up with a plan. It wasn't my proudest moment, but I felt like I had no other options. I created a fake Instagram account. I sent her a message from that account, pretending to be someone who knew about her affair. In the message, I said I had proof that she was sleeping with her friend, and that I was going to contact her partner in 3 days if she didn't come clean. It was a bluff, of course. I didn't have any concrete proof. But I figured if she really was cheating, the fear of getting caught would force her to admit it. The next day, she sat me down. Her face was pale, her hands fidgeting nervously, and she said she needed to talk. I already knew what was coming, but hearing her say it still hit me like a punch to the gut. She admitted to cheating. She didn't say who it was with or how long it had been going on. But she was sorry. She said she loved me and wanted to make things work. She said it didn't mean anything. That line made me sick. How could it mean nothing? How could she say she loved me while doing something like that behind my back? I let her finish her little confession. And then I told her the truth. I told her that it was me who had sent the message. That I had tricked her into admitting to the affair. That's when she completely lost it. She screamed at me, accusing me of being manipulative, of violating her privacy, of being just as bad as she was. In that moment, I didn't feel anything. It was like I'd already been hollowed out by everything she'd done. And her reaction just confirmed what I'd already known, that she wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. Things escalated quickly after that. She told me to leave the apartment. And I did. I couldn't stay there, not after that blow up. I stayed at a friend's place that night, trying to wrap my head around everything. The betrayal, the lies, the fact that I'd met this guy several times, shaken his hand, bought him a drink, acted like he was harmless. It made me feel like an idiot for trusting her, for assuming that she was someone who would never cheat. I'd never cheated on anyone in my life, and I naively thought she was cut from the same cloth. When I went back to the apartment the next day, she was gone. Most of her clothes were gone too. And she'd trashed the place before leaving. It was like a tornado had ripped through our home. Furniture was knocked over. Clothes and personal items were strewn everywhere. And a few things were broken. I didn't even know where to start. So I just stood there for a while, staring at the mess, wondering how things had gotten this bad. It felt like my life had been turned upside down in the span of a few days. And I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. In the weeks that followed, I had to find a new place to live. Separating our stuff was a nightmare. Not just because of the logistics, but because every piece of furniture, every shared possession was a reminder of what we used to have. Or at least what I thought we had. It's been tough, dealing with the breakup and the fallout of everything. There's this deep sense of betrayal that I can't shake. I gave so much of myself to this relationship, only to find out that it was built on lies. And to make it worse, she's been telling people that I'm the asshole for tricking her into admitting to the affair. She's adamant that I went too far by creating that fake account, by manipulating her into confessing. Maybe she's right, I don't know, but the way I see it, I had a right to the truth. She wasn't going to tell me on her own. She would have kept lying, kept sneaking around, and I would have been none the wiser. Am I really the bad guy for wanting to know what was going on in my own relationship? There's a part of me that feels guilty for the way I handled things. I'm not proud of setting her up, of creating a situation where I tricked her into confessing. But at the same time, I don't feel like I owe her anything. She's the one who cheated. She's the one who betrayed my trust. So why should I feel bad for exposing the truth? It's not like I made her cheat. She made that choice on her own. I've been going over it in my head ever since it happened. Was I wrong? Should I have handled it differently? Maybe, but in the heat of the moment, when you feel like your whole world is crumbling around you, it's hard to think rationally. All I wanted was the truth. And I got it. It just came at a cost. Now, I'm left picking up the pieces, trying to move on from a relationship that I thought was solid but turned out to be a lie. I guess what bothers me the most is that I'll never really know how long it had been going on. She never told me the full story. And part of me wonders if she ever will. Was it just a fling? Or had this been happening for months? Years? I hate not knowing. It's like there's this huge part of my life that I'll never fully understand because she decided to keep me in the dark. I've tried to move forward, but it's hard when the person you trusted most turns out to be a stranger. I've been focusing on myself, trying to rebuild after everything fell apart. But it's tough. There are good days where I feel like I'm making progress. And then there are days where it all comes flooding back, the anger, the betrayal, the sense of loss. It's like this wound that never fully heals. So, am I the asshole for tricking her into admitting to the affair? Maybe, but honestly, I don't feel like I am. She made her choices, and I made mine. It wasn't pretty, but life rarely is. Now I just have to figure out how to move forward, one day at a time.
My brother's life went off the rails when his wife, whom I'll call Lisa, decided to become a stripper. They had been married for a few years, and things were already a little rocky, but no one could have predicted just how wild it would all get. It started innocently enough, or at least as innocent as this kind of thing can start. Lisa wanted to help bring in some extra money. My brother, we'll call him Mark, wasn't exactly rolling in cash at the time, and the idea of some extra income sounded good to him. I think he thought she meant picking up a part-time job somewhere, maybe waitressing or doing something more traditional. But then, out of the blue, Lisa announces she's going to be stripping. I remember the moment Mark told me. He was sitting on my couch, this blank, stunned look on his face, like he'd just been hit by a freight train. I didn't know what to say. At first, Lisa tried to downplay it, saying it was just dancing and that there was nothing to be worried about. She claimed it was just a way to make some quick money. Nothing more. Mark pretended to be okay with it. But deep down, I think everyone in our family knew it was a ticking time bomb. You don't just jump into something like that without it messing with the dynamics of a marriage. Mark tried to act cool. He'd go to the club with his friends, watch her perform, tip her, and pretend like it didn't bother him. It was this bizarre display of fake confidence, like he was determined to prove he was the most open-minded, laid-back guy in the world. But it was obvious that it ate at him. And Lisa? Well, she picked up on it, and instead of backing off, she leaned into it even more. The more he tried to pretend it didn't bother him, the more intense her performances got when he was there. It was like they were stuck in this toxic game of one-upmanship. If Mark was in the club, she'd go out of her way to give the most over-the-top lap dances to the other men, all while making sure he was watching. She knew exactly how to push his buttons, and she did it with a smile on her face. I'm sure to everyone else it looked like she was just doing her job, but it was clear to those who knew them that it was personal. Mark didn't take it lying down, though. If she was going to throw it in his face, he was going to retaliate. He started getting lap dances from other girls while she was working, sometimes from 2 at a time. He'd sit there in full view of her, laughing and having a great time with the girls she couldn't stand. It was petty, but it was the only way he knew how to get back at her. And when he was feeling particularly vindictive, he'd make sure to get lap dances from the stripper Lisa was the most jealous of a girl I'll call Jenna. Jenna was everything Lisa wasn't. Younger, prettier, at least in Lisa's eyes, and incredibly confident. Lisa couldn't stand her. She knew Jenna had a certain power over the men at the club, including Mark. The more jealous Lisa got, the more Mark went out of his way to interact with Jenna. It was a cycle of revenge that neither of them could seem to break. It all came to a head at their daughter's birthday party. Their daughter had just turned 5, and they invited the whole class over for the party. Balloons, cake, the works. It was supposed to be a typical, innocent kids party. But of course, nothing is ever simple when it comes to Mark and Lisa. As fate would have it, one of the moms who showed up was none other than Jenna. The very stripper Lisa hated more than anyone. Turns out Jenna had a kid in the same class as their daughter. I wasn't there for the whole thing. I was helping the kids with some games when the shouting started. Apparently, Mark had been chatting with Jenna, laughing and making small talk. Lisa saw them together and absolutely lost it. From what my husband told me later, it was the most inappropriate, ridiculous argument you could ever imagine at a children's birthday party. She accused Mark of being in love with Jenna, of sneaking around with her, and of basically turning their daughter's party into some kind of sick joke. Mark, never one to back down from a fight, threw it right back at her, accusing her of being jealous and insecure. And, well, things escalated quickly. It went from a few sharp words to an all-out screaming match. They were standing there in front of a group of kindergartners, hurling insults at each other while everyone else just looked on in stunned silence. It was surreal. The kids were confused, the parents were horrified, and I was in the corner, desperately trying to keep the kids distracted with games while the whole thing unfolded. That fight was the final straw. A few days later, Mark and Lisa filed for divorce. But, of course, it didn't end there. It never does with them. Mark, being the spiteful guy he is, decided to start dating Jenna after the fight, just to twist the knife a little deeper. He didn't care about Jenna. It was purely a way to get back at Lisa. They dated for a few months, but it was a disaster from the start. Everyone could see that it was a relationship based on revenge, not love, and it fizzled out pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Lisa moved in with one of her wealthy regulars from the club. The guy was loaded, and I guess he'd been supporting her for a while. I don't know the details, but from what I hear, it was a classic sugar daddy situation. They got married not long after the divorce was finalized. The whole thing was messy and dragged out for almost 4 years. They spent tens of thousands of dollars fighting over everything: money, custody, the house. Mark thought Lisa should get less because she became a stripper, but that didn't hold much weight, especially when it came out that he'd spent over $10,000 on lap dances in just a couple of months. The irony was thick. When the dust finally settled, Lisa got remarried, living comfortably with her wealthy patron. And Mark, well, he hasn't remarried. He jumps from one girlfriend to the next, never staying with anyone for long. He's on Tinder constantly, always looking for the next distraction. I don't think he's really processed everything that happened. And honestly, I don't know if he ever will. He's stuck in this cycle of short-term relationships, avoiding anything serious. It's like he's running from something, but I don't think he knows what it is. Looking back on everything, it's hard to believe how dramatic and insane the whole situation got. What started as a marriage with normal problems spiraled into this bizarre saga of jealousy, revenge, and strip club drama. I don't know if Mark and Lisa ever truly loved each other, or if they just thrived on the chaos they created together. But one thing's for sure, they both played a role in how everything exploded. The most tragic part of all this is their daughter. She's caught in the middle of two parents who couldn't stop tearing each other apart, even at her birthday party. I've seen her grow up surrounded by dysfunction, and it breaks my heart. Mark tries to be a good dad, but he's distracted, always chasing the next girlfriend, the next thrill. Lisa, on the other hand, is more focused on her new life with her wealthy husband than on being a mother. In the end, no one really won. Lisa got what she wanted: money, security, but at the cost of her family. Mark is still searching for something, bouncing from one fleeting relationship to the next. But he's lost more than he realizes. And their daughter? She's left with the memories of her parents' bitter fights, wondering if love always looks like that. As for me, I'll always remember that ridiculous birthday party, the moment when everything came crashing down in the most dramatic way possible. It's a story I tell sometimes, half in disbelief, half in sadness, because it shows just how far people can go when they let jealousy and pride take control. Life is strange like that. You think you've seen it all, and then something like this happens, and you realize there's always another layer of crazy just waiting to unfold.